prepare our hearts and our minds to receive the word of God. Let's go ahead and silent prayer. So, some of you may have noticed something different about me today. I don't look like my usual pastoral self. You can't see it now, but you probably already noticed that yes, I am wearing shorts today.
Where's that your pants from?
That's a very real possibility. And no, I'm not wearing a tie either. And yes, I feel pretty awkward. There is a good reason for this. There's a very good reason for this. We had plans to fly out and visit Megan's parents in North Carolina last week. And as most of you remember, they live on the far coast in North Carolina. And you also might remember that I have, in the past, had some difficulty in keeping my gas tank full on long drives. So we decided to fly. And the boys were already out there because Megan's parents, for Christmas or something, got them so they could come out for the week by themselves, which was a wonderful Christmas gift for the boys. And so anyway, it was just going to be me and Megan and Evie, and we were going to fly out there. And so last Thursday, the flight was supposed to leave at 4, I think, and then we started getting the messages at like 3 that it was delayed until 4:30, and then it was delayed until 5. And we kept getting those. We went to the, finally it was supposed to leave at 9:30 or something. We got to the airport. It was the craziest whole thing. We get in the line. It was actually a really long security line, you know, and Abby's, she's being pretty good and everything. We get up there and the fire alarm goes off right when we were up there. And they're like, we can't, like, what do we do? Because no one was leaving. Because it's a glass building, it's not really going to catch on fire. But the fire alarm was going off, and they wouldn't take us through the security thing. And so we were all worried we were going to miss it. We finally get out there. They couldn't shut the fire alarm off, and so it was this high, piercing noise. And he goes, what is that? Why don't they turn that off? They didn't. And so we're sitting there, and we're sitting there, and we're sitting there, and then they said, well, the flight's delayed. The plane's in Florida or something. As soon as it gets back, then we'll go. Anyway, it's about 1 a.m., and they finally say, well, we just decided to cancel the flight. So the flight was canceled at 1 a.m., and we were just didn't know what to do. And so I just said, well, let's just, I mean, we're already an hour closer, so let's just drive. And so we just decided to drive out there, and we were going to stop in Dayton at a hotel, but Megan was asleep, and I can't find hotels by myself, so I just kept driving, and then we ended up in North Carolina. So bottom line is, then we didn't have a flight back, and so we, to make a long story short, the boys couldn't fly by themselves, so Megan had to fly out there with them, and then she had to fly back, and so the boys couldn't come back on their flight. And so we all had to drive back, but we were supposed to come back on our flight on Thursday, but we couldn't do that because of something else. And so anyways, we spent last night in a hotel, and I don't have long pants, and so I'm wearing shorts. I could be wearing swimming trunks right now, so this is actually better than the other scenario. So, like I said, I am wearing shorts, but I will say that as we were discussing all the different scenarios and figuring out what to do, I mentioned to Megan, I said, you know, I'm going to feel a little weird, or a lot weird, wearing shorts in church. but she told me that if there's a church that you can come as you are and not worry about what you're wearing, it's this one. So, of course, she was right, and who knows what I'll be wearing next week, I guess, is the moral of the story. But it's all actually kind of appropriate, because my last sermon, where I left off at Luke in chapter 10, and I want to continue that today. And I'm not going to tell you what the verse is yet, but it all kind of fits together with this idea of looking different than normal. And as I was researching this passage, I found this story that was written about 10 years ago, and it was on the internet. It's not a real story. It's obviously too perfect for that. But it was a story that was written, and it fits perfectly, obviously, because it was written for that, with the verse today, and it fits perfectly with what Jesus was trying to say about 2,000 years ago when he first told it. And the story goes, there was once a rundown coffee shop, kind of a beat-up area, a beat-up neighborhood, and it was kind of known for being a rough neighborhood, kind of a dangerous neighborhood. And one day, a Baptist preacher walked in, and he got some coffee, and he was on his way to somewhere else. He was passing through. And so he sat down to wait, busying himself with the newspaper or his phone or whatever. And he was not really paying attention, but in the corner there was a man who was clearly having a rough day. He was crying silently. You could see his head was down, and his shoulders were kind of shaking. And just as the Baptist preacher's order was ready, a deacon from the church walked in. And they greeted each other. They engaged in a lively conversation as they waited for the deacon's coffee. And there was really basically no acknowledgement of the man in the corner who had, at this point, put his head on the table in his arms and was kind of crying in the corner. In fact, as they were leaving, the preacher kind of elbowed the guy and said, you know, what's with that guy? As they left, and just as they opened the door to leave, another customer was coming in. This customer was a young lady. She had short, spiky hair, dyed in rainbow colors, heavy black makeup on her eyes and her lips, and lots of piercings, lots of tattoos, and the pastor and the deacon kind of gave her a wide berth, got out of her way, and they basically kind of thought to themselves, you know, what's with kids these days? Look at how these kids look these days. And they went on, they left to their destination. And as that young woman came in, she immediately noticed the man in the corner, and she went up to him, and she was filled with passion. And he didn't look good. He had a black eye, looked like he had a little bit of dry blood on his lips, and there was no one else around. The shop by this point was empty. The waitress was in the back doing something else, and the pastor and the deacon had already left. And so she sat down across from the man, and she asked him, basically, and said to him what was pretty obvious. She said, "It looks like you're having a hard day." And she said, "May I buy you a cup of coffee?" The man looked up, and his eyes were all bloodshot, and he saw this face looking at him, a face that was full of care, it was full of concern, nothing else. And she was the only person that had spoken to him in all that time that he had been there that morning. And so she got some paper towels from the bathroom, got a cup of coffee from and water from the waitress, cleaned up his wounds, and while he drank the water and the coffee, he told her his story. And he said that he had been mugged a little bit ago, and they had taken his money, and he was on his way to his job, and he was worried that he was going to lose his job now. And the young woman helped him contact the police. She bought him a gift card for the coffee shop so he could order whatever he wanted for the next couple of meals. She even gave him some bus tokens that she had so he could get to his job so he wouldn't get fired. And then she called him later at work. She found out where he worked, and she called him later at work just to make sure that he was on the mend. And the man wanted to pay her back, but she refused. And she wouldn't let him know where he could even find her. So the young woman told him that she was a neighbor. That's what neighbors do. And he told her that he had never seen her in his neighborhood, and he thought that her understanding of being a neighbor was broader than his. And she laughed good-naturedly and told him that he was right, wished him well, and hung up the phone. The man obviously sat back with amazement. And as we hear this modern retelling of obviously the story, the Good Samaritan story, it can kind of hit us a little bit. It's obviously a story full of stereotypes, but there is a grain of truth in each character in the story. And we've all been in each one of those characters' shoes in one way or the other. And we've all been asked by God through circumstance to expand our vision, to expand our idea of what it means to be neighborly. So like the people who would have heard this story in Jesus' time, we have boundaries, we have rules that we live by. See, in the Jewish culture at the time, there were rules that determined how men could treat women, or how parents should treat their children, how Jews should treat foreigners, how Jews should treat Gentiles and Samaritans and so forth. And these systems were set up. So there was a social order where certain positions had power and privilege, and those positions were well maintained. And their society was actually not so different 2,000 years ago than it is now. We have systems in place, and they're difficult to escape. They're difficult to rise above. And yet, this is precisely what Jesus was calling his people, calling the people of the time to do. And it does translate to our own society today. So many times we judge people by what they're wearing, by where they're from, or how they look. I was doing this, I remember I heard about this website. It's called Preachers and Sneakers. The whole website is dedicated to the shoes that preachers wear, kind of calling them out on the different kinds of shoes here. And I think about the shoes that I wear, and I don't think I would make that website, but it did make me wonder if there's going to be a website now. I hope none of you started. It's like, Preacher Rants in Short Pants. Did you use that? Let me know. Well, let's read the story. I don't have the slides because I wasn't able to get good internet out there. But this is the story from Luke. This is in Luke chapter 10. And this is verse 25 to 27. So this is the story as Jesus told it in Luke. And it starts on verse 25. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" And the expert answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this, and you will live." But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" In reply, Jesus said, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him out of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place, saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him, bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. And then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have." Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? And the expert in the law replied, "The one who had mercy on him." Jesus told him, "Go, do likewise." So this passage starts with an expert in the law, asking Jesus questions. And I kind of imagine that this expert was kind of like a smart aleck, trying to stump Jesus or trying to outsmart Jesus so that he could catch him saying something that was wrong. And notice that he uses the phrase, "What must I do to inherit eternal life?" Inherit is the word he used. Inheritance meant tangible goods back then. Things that you could have, like land or wealth or herds. It was a promised reward. A reward based on who you are. A reward that was clearly defined by the rules and the norms of society. But Jesus had a different message. He said eternal life was congruent to living a life in God's kingdom with its own rules, with its own norms, with its own boundaries, and not societal ones. Jesus turns the law experts' challenge around to show that God's power is over one's whole life. Every action, every deed. Reading and knowing the law is not enough. Loving God, your neighbor, and yourself characterizes someone who is already living in the kingdom of God. The promise of inheritance, that promise is now attached to a demand. At the end, Jesus said, "Go and do likewise." So the law expert told Jesus that the one who showed mercy was the injured man's neighbor. So how do we go about showing that same kind of mercy in our own lives? The kind of mercy that one does not expect, or one that doesn't come with any kind of reward or any kind of perk. The kind of mercy that has no boundaries, as Jesus so cleverly identifies in this parable. The kind of mercy it often has a steep price. Losing money to help someone get back up on their feet. Or losing friends because you stood up for someone that was being treated unfairly. Or being ostracized for your own beliefs or your own views. The list could go on and on. We all know these types of stories. And we must ask ourselves if we are willing to pay the price of mercy, or if we're just going to walk on by. Being a true neighbor means that we are living actively and not passively in the kingdom of God. It's not easy. It's not easy, and we can't do it alone. And it's clear that our work is never done. It's never done. We need God's help to do this, to live this way, to understand who our neighbors are. And we need the help of each other. We need support of each other. In Colossians, Paul tells them that he and Timothy are praying for them. This is from Colossians. He said, "For this reason, since the day we heard about you, we have not stopped praying for you. We continually ask God to fill you with the knowledge of His will through all the wisdom and understanding that the Spirit gives, so that you may live a life worthy of the Lord and please Him in every way, bearing fruit in every good work, growing in the knowledge of God, being strengthened with all power according to His glorious might, so that you may have great endurance and patience, and giving joyful thanks to the Father, who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of His holy people in the kingdom of light. For He has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son He loves, in whom we have redemption and forgiveness of sins." So we continue to ask, who is my neighbor? And Jesus continues to answer us with words that should not surprise us, knowing how Jesus works, but they always do. The marginalized one, the different colored one, the one with a different culture, the old one, the young one, the one who looks different, the one who lives different, acts different, the one who is us. What is surprising is how difficult it is to show mercy to those who do not fit in our boundaries, despite what we know Jesus is asking us to do. Living a merciful life is not defined as helping somebody once. Instead, it's a life in which a person's character is formed by that foundation that they love God, they love their neighbor, and they love themselves. As Paul implied in his prayer, this is a journey that lasts a lifetime. Our faith journeys take a lifetime. I found a quote from Gandhi, who was quoted once as saying, "Your beliefs become your thoughts. Your thoughts become your words. Your words become your actions. Your actions become your habits. Your habits become your values. Your values become your destiny." I was thinking back to whenever we have a baptism ceremony, I often ask questions like, will you proclaim by word and example the good news of Jesus Christ? Or will you seek to serve Christ for all people, loving your neighbor as yourself? Or will you strive for peace and justice among all people and respect the dignity of every human being? And the answer is always, I will, with God's help. So the call to go, the call to go out and do, it is challenging. And it is transforming. Living out mercy changes us. It changes us as people. May we be blessed with God's own mercy, grace, as we strive to bless our neighbors with that same mercy and grace. Now let's all stand.